As gamers, we all have our humble beginnings, with nostalgic feelings towards a whole range of things that are near to our hearts. For me, that's the 90s, and its classic action movies, sleek cars, electronic music, and of course, early 3D games. I started developing Bad Girl a couple of years ago as an homage to all the nostalgic things that I like about the 90s. This includes the open level designs of GoldenEye, the simplicity of Die Hard trilogy, and the colorful particle effects of fighting games, while simultaneously paying tribute to blockbuster action movies and using a badass Eurodance soundtrack. In Bad Girl, I've done the design, art, and programming, essentially making this a one-man project. In this series of devlogs, I'm going to give you an insight on progress and my reasoning while developing games. Before I get started, I would like to urge you to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to support me in my work. Weapons handling is the perhaps most important aspect when creating a shooter that feels engaging and polished. For that reason, I've started off 2021 by redoing considerable portions of how the guns work. In this episode, I'm going to cover how the implementation of guns has changed and how it will change. To be honest, the weapons were the first thing I started to work on when developing Bad Girl. At that point, I was new to programming, and I made a whole heap of mistakes that I've gradually been correcting. The first major error I made when implementing weapons was that each weapon initially received a single bespoke script that does everything. At the time, this seemed like a reasonable approach. However, it became apparent that it's problematic once I got my first piece of feedback. People thought it was less than optimal to spawn bullets as physical objects, and instead urged me to swap to hit scanning. While not a massive deal in and of itself, I realized that it was quite simply annoying to have to change these sorts of things for each weapon individually. For this reason, I created the Shoot Bullet script. The script handles the raycast and causes enemies and items damage, as well as spawning bullet hit particles, while the weapon scripts handle the more unique aspects of each weapon. And thus, I feel the need to explain the weapons in and of themselves. Bad Girl features 4 weapons, one for each direction on the D-pad. The pistol is a regular semi-automatic, with one exception. Players can cock the hammer to unleash one shot that is considerably more powerful. The assault rifle is a powerful auto rifle with an underbarrel grenade launcher. The shotgun is a pump-action double-barrel shotgun. Players can fire either one of the barrels at once or both at once. Players are then forced to pump the gun once both chambers are empty. Thus, they are given the choice of firing 2 shots in rapid succession before pumping or pumping after each shot. And of course, you need to reload the shotgun like you would in real life. Lastly, we have the machine gun, a fully automatic weapon which doesn't need to reload at all. The weapon has the additional quirk of having an overheating barrel. In real life, this is a bad thing, but in Bad Girl, the result is bullets that can set enemies on fire. As I've continued to improve the game, for example by using raycasts to aim, I've realized that there's a lot more functionality that I could lift out into shared scripts. A more recent error I've noticed is that I previously have stored health in different scripts for different entities. The player character has a bespoke health script. Enemies have health baked into their AI. And Windows have a Windows script. The bullet fire script would check the tag of the thing it hits and different behaviors would be triggered for each tag. When the amount of things that could be shot at was limited, this wasn't particularly problematic. However, as I desired to introduce more enemy types and more destructible objects, it was yet again impractical to write long lists of things that can be damaged. Thus, I've instead introduced a health container script, which these object-specific scripts can access. The script doesn't just contain health, it also contains information such as whether an object can be set on fire, and if it is on fire. Instead of looking for tags, weapons, and explosions, now just look if the object has a health container script attached to it, and then changes variables therein. Not only has this simplified the bullet shoot script, it has also inspired me to implement more destruction and interactivity into the game environment. From the very start of development, I've had a weapons manager. The script keeps track of your ammunition as well as managing weapon changes and weapon UI. Yet again, this is a script that was written very early on in development, and thus it's extremely long and complicated for what it does. Each weapon had a separate variable for its game objects, ammo readout, ammo count, and other variables. When players pressed a button on the D-pad, each variable would separately be addressed. This solution worked well for a long time. However, as I implemented other features, I decided it's time for a change. So I decided to create a struct containing the basic weapon variables like ammo, weapon object, and so on. So now, instead I use a for loop, where it quite simply addresses all of the variables for all of the weapons at once when you change. The weapon manager also received additional functionality that's shared between weapons. For example, last year I implemented ray tracing to make aiming work better. Previously, this was done in each gun separately, but yet again I want to lift all shared functionality from the weapons and put it elsewhere. Of course, turning the protagonist's chest towards a point in front of the camera gives less than favorable results, so there was a need to store an offset variable. As a weapon manager already had a struct to hold different shared variables, I quite simply chose to attach the aiming offset there. Thus far, all of the things I've brought up have been kind of boring, behind the stage stuff. Let's get to the more exciting and visible stuff. So far, one of the game's major shortcomings has been animations. I neither have the time or skill to make animations that live up to the level of quality that I aspire to achieve, nor do I currently have an animator to help me. As such, I use animations off of Mixamo. While of good quality, they're not adapted specifically for my weapons, which gives sometimes less than perfect results. Some animations quite simply don't exist at all. What do I mean by this? Well, the problem is perhaps most obvious with the shotgun. With the protagonist's hand isn't touching the cocking handle, and the cocking handle's movement isn't at all matching the hand motions. The solution I've decided to apply here is the use of inverse kinematics for the front hand. Another visual detail to make the weapons feel more powerful is, of course, recoil. I created a separate script that rotates the protagonist's forearm and hand according to one of two animation curves per gun. I do this because 3 of the weapons have 2 separate fire modes, which should produce considerably different recoils. And now, when we check it, it works quite nicely. Just look how great it looks for that pistol. Now let's check the shotgun. Oh, yeah. Well, I guess that's a good place to leave things for today. If you have any feedback on the game or the series, please leave it in the comment section below. Until next time, have an awesome day.